Burke. Burke is somebody that I've known for, I don't know, maybe a couple of years since I started working on Dominica, I think. And the money laundering expert that I've been talking to for a while here in the US said, "Oh, Burke knows a lot about Dominica." In fact, not only does he know a lot about Dominica, but he was doing due diligence for them, and he helped me a great deal early on. And now I'm working on a book on that topic. So he and I will have more conversations, I'm pretty sure, in the future. But he also has a vast experience in the financial, I guess, skullduggery world. He is 45 years in finance, 35 years as a licensed investigator, specializing in international fraud recovery, due diligence, and cases where the desktop must be abandoned. You'll have to explain that to me. He's an author, a professional educator. He's found laundered currency and assets on 6 continents. And he's worked on cases in over 130 countries, visited over 100 countries. Man, your passport must look like Epstein's, or maybe you have multiple passports. And his cases typically start at 15 million and reach into the billions. So I had a chance to look at Burke's upcoming book, which will be published in 26, you think? 2026?
Release date is February 17th, 2020.
Imminently. Okay. So I had a chance to look at it, and I have to say that it is highly entertaining to read, and it has a lot of information, but it's fun to read. It's not like I'm not a math major. I never went to MBA school, and it doesn't have any of that kind of language in it. It's fantastic. So I recommend anybody who is interested in the subject of money laundering to pick it up. It's called How to Launder Money, a guide for law enforcement, prosecutors, and policymakers. But before we get into, I want to talk to you a little bit about Epstein. But before we get to Epstein, I wanted to ask you to just recount for us the origin of money laundering and where the name came from. It's such a great story, and we could go on and on. But just give us the thumbnail on what is money laundering and where did we come up with the title?
My co-author, Georgie Cottrell, and I used to go back and forth about this. And if you go back throughout time and history, really the only thing that comes up with quote unquote money laundering was with Al Capone. And that's where he bought, I believe it was Quality Laundry. And why did he buy Quality Laundry? Because at that time, the laundry business was ruthless. Back in the 30s, the laundry truck would stop, a competitor would open up, throw dye or acid in on all the laundry, causing that other laundry to lose business.
Wow. And this is in the city of Chicago, yeah?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And the guy who ran Quality Laundry, now with a partner by the name of Al Capone, he said, "I got the best business partner for security ever." And his trucks were immune, but the trucks were also used to go around town to drop off and pick up prostitutes, pick up money from betting, from bourbon, drop off bourbon, pick up money. So everything was running around in the laundry trucks. There is a rumor that is where the term money laundering started. But if we must be authentic, and I must, money laundering really came into being once they finally wrote the statutes and described money laundering.
Which would be when? The 50s? 80s?
Actually, the first was the Bank Secrecy Act. I think it was 1971 that took on money laundering. It was, quote, the beginning of the war on drugs under Nixon. But it wasn't until the 1990s when the Organization of Economic Cooperation Development, the OECD, and its stepchild, the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, decided to come up with a list of harmful tax competition countries, which quickly morphed into money laundering centers when they could be tied to the attacks of 9/11. But this is where we got our gray lists, our black lists. It's, quote, the non-compliant countries and territories. Under treaties, anything found as a finding by the OECD, the member countries have to put into law. So there's right now about 38 countries that are members of the OECD. What do we do with the other countries? It's extortion. We say, hey, you got to pass these laws. We pass these laws. You got to pass these laws and abide by this. Otherwise, we'll cut you off from banking.
Wow.
So it's a little strong arm on the smaller countries.
Yes, including these islands
Yes.
where a lot of the money goes. So, um, what exactly is money laundering?
Really, money laundering is a process of moving money that you've obtained illegally from an illegal process and moving it through, they call it placement layering integration. You place it into the system, you do lots of transactions, layer it, and then you integrate it back into the system so it looks clean. That's really the process of money laundering. But also, money laundering could be clean money going into accounts that are used for terrible purposes, such
Hmm.
as raising money as a charity and that charity actually being a front for terrorists.
Hmm. With Epstein, I know you're pretty familiar with the story. I send you stuff all the time and ask you to help me understand what was going on. Um, what was, I mean, the great mysteries about Epstein? The New York Times just did this huge story about where he made his money and how he made his money, and we looked at it. But I'm still mystified by a couple things. Well, let's just start with why would, let's say, a hedge fund titan like Leon Black decide to pay this guy 170 million. I'm just looking at my, it's $170 million between 2012 and 2017. Um, what what possible reason would somebody like that have to give that much money to somebody like an Epstein, who isn't widely known as, the safe place to hide, to sort of stash your money? He's not a bank, right? Why would he do that?
Around the world, there's a whole group of people that specialize, those who make a lot of money, to help them keep that money. And it's not only managing taxes, it's also managing things such as estate taxes. It's managing risk and liability. It's managing against asset forfeiture. And someone like Leon Black or Les Wexner, they're narrowly focused. They know their business, and they've made a lot of money. Now they say, I want to keep that money. I want to be compliant, but still pay the minimum amount of tax. Can you help me? And Epstein was this shadow expert.
Mm.
And from what I saw and what I read, his structures were very good, very compliant. He used top-notch law firms. He used some of the best investment bankers and banking houses to help him. And he was able to do that, where many other people would, how do I put this? They would have put their clients through a lot more steps.
Interesting. So he was shaving off the steps, but he wasn't actually breaking the law in what you think that he was doing with these people's money.
Correct. Very
Yeah.
aggressive. I don't think it was breaking the law.
Why would a Les Wexner hand over power of attorney for a fortune of $1 billion to somebody like this, who, when his own accountants thought Epstein it was bad news?
Trust is a personal thing, and that trust is built over a period of time. How were Les Wexner and Epstein building trust together? Uh, we may not like Jeffrey Epstein, but let's not say he wasn't smart. Was he a good man? I don't think so. But he was able to build that trust and camaraderie in his clients before they came to him. And they also had Israel as a strong connection.
For
And
sure, with Wexner, for sure, yeah.
absolutely. And
Hmm.
that was, okay, what can we do with this money? And Wexner had some shares in his company that were now highly appreciated. So I'm just going to use some numbers. He buys them at $2. The shares are now trading at $10. He can donate those shares to a foundation
Mhm.
and receive a fair amount of tax benefit from that. Then that foundation, and it has to be run by a third party. Wexner couldn't run it. So it had to be someone like Epstein or a professional trust company.
And we know he did run foundations for Wexner.
That's right.
Many.
You have to have that third party to get that tax credit.
Mm.
Then you put that money into this foundation. What can the foundation do? The foundation can sell the shares, can donate the money to a cause that supports Israel, can lease jets to fly people around in the jets. And in many cases, the abuse of these private foundations is like a lot of the athletes. They have a foundation for, it's typically children. Why not? And that allows them for their parents to fly in a private jet. The foundation pays for their parents to fly on a private jet to go see some of their sons or daughters' games.
Okay, so now we've talked about some of the well-known American associates, right, with the money. Why would he um why would he associate himself with, and why would these world leaders associate themselves with a man like that? Have you watched this story long enough to understand what the attraction would be of somebody like an Epstein to, like a Saudi prince or a Bill Clinton or a Bill Gates? What's going on there?
I have two friends that are fairly famous, and their face would be recognized on the street. Like I mentioned to you yesterday, myself and a dear friend were walking down the street in April in London, and they said, "Oh, you're so and so." And he goes, "No, no, no, I just look like him."
Hmm.
Sometimes folks, the famous folks that are really isolated, have want to find a place they can just be themselves. They can go there. The buddy goes, Epstein goes, "Oh, you want a drink? There's a couple of glasses in the cabinet. You want to join us for dinner? We might have takeout." But now they can just be. They don't have to be on guard. But unfortunately, part of the problem in his world is the little spider kept a lot of records and took a lot of pictures. And anymore, just the fact that you had tea with Epstein, or you were related somehow to a transaction, people are losing their jobs all over.
Right, but I mean, there's one thing to be yourself with somebody where you're out of sight of the rebel, and it's another thing to be yourself like a Prince Andrew with Ghislaine Maxwell serving up the 17-year-old. And the DOJ has said that Epstein trafficked more than 1,000 young women. And I mean, that's Pam Bondi saying that. I suppose I mean, I find that number stupendously gigantic. But the
It's
trafficking of women is part of
really
this money.
disgusting.
It's part of this money thing in some way, Burke. And I just wonder, like, is money laundering, this type of money moving, related to the movement of humans as well? That they're in some way, if you're able to do one thing, you're able to do the other. Like the banks were not reporting him at the time, right? The SARS were not coming. The SARS, these documents were not being filled out.
So many SARS, I call it the, oh my goodness, we should have filed SARS. When a news story breaks, they go back and look and try to look for that client. Like, oh my gosh, we should have filed these.
Wow.
In terms of the human
So they don't
trafficking,
take it seriously. The banks don't take this stuff seriously. You could see that happening.
no, they don't know. Until Epstein was accused of trafficking children, there's nothing out there that said he was a bad man. Right. And I'll tell you that most of the due diligence checks on a high profile person take a day or two at most. They quick look for any litigation, any convictions, anything else. None of that, fine. We'll move forward. In terms
Especially if there's $1 million on the table ready to be invested in your bank.
Oh, that could cut the time just a little bit. You know, the idea that you have this private area where you can do things that are prohibited, or actually completely disgusting, is part of the extension of someone wanting to trap others, getting them to do things they shouldn't do. But it appeared he also enjoyed it as well. So it comes a circle of the greater. I don't know. That's a terrible description. Um, it's in some ways entertainment, and in some ways entrapment. It's pretty gross.
What is the advantage to somebody in his business to courting these famous people, even if they didn't have money?
Would it be great just to have a wall of those pictures, with myself and Ehud Barak, or myself and Trump, or Ronald Reagan standing next to one, or Margaret Thatcher? I mean, that's great. People look at that. Oh, you know Margaret Thatcher? Oh, you know that person? It then becomes a bit, people get a little starstruck. And to get the invite to one of the Epstein parties where the creme de la creme of the international world of politics and finance meet, oh, I can't wait to go.
FOMO. FOMO.
Absolutely. There was a character here in Arizona many years ago that had all sorts of pictures in his office of people like with Linda Carter, my dear friend, thank you, and someone else. And it turned out they were all fake photos. He'd asked for a publicity photo, then he'd had someone sign it, so it wasn't all his handwriting.
Hmm. We talked a little bit yesterday about the Bear Stearns and JP Morgan stuff. What how does that play into what he became? His early jobs at Bear Stearns, and then the way Bear Stearns got taken over by it was Morgan or Chase that took over Stearns, and Stearns was involved in some pretty Bear, I guess is what they call it. They were involved with some pretty shady things when he was there.
Um, many of the brokerage firms, the medium to large size private firms or semi-private firms, really do push the envelope because the risk is usually commensurate with the return. The problem is you don't want to push the risk so hard that you blow up. And the risks include not only the investments, uh, occasionally the source of the money, but also the risks associated with taking on a client. We haven't talked about it, but just look at the 1MDB fiasco in Indonesia.
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of just hundreds of millions of dollars flying everywhere and nobody paying attention until they did. Um,
Well,
and Goldman Sachs was looking at a guy that was doing a great job, and he really was.